Moon Letter, astrological podcast.
Time is of the essence. From Saturn to the Centaurs, by Ben Walensky. To understand the nature of prediction and divination means understanding the nature of time. I want to look at time from different points of view, using the astrological understanding of the planets as a map to guide us. Starting with Saturn. Before the modern era of astronomy, Saturn was the furthest out visible planet, the limit of our solar system, representing for astrologers the limit of human experience. It was characterized as the god of old age, tied to the cost that time inflicts on our bodies, the inevitable process of aging. Our sense of time being tied to the human lifetime and the ego, for as the ego cannot deal with anything beyond its own limited existence, its time finishes with death. Another way of looking at Saturn's time is Newton's understanding of space and time as absolute and universal. For Newton, space extends infinitely in 3 dimensions, whereas time is linear and irreversible, existing only as before, during, and after, past, present, and future, beginning, middle, and end, what physicists call the arrow of time. For Saturn, time is duration, something to be counted and measured. In order to measure time, we have to divide it into units. Some units are givens, the year, the month, the day, but smaller divisions are man-made, the hour, the minute, the second. For these smaller units we have to compare them to the repetition of events. Historically, these events included the swing of the pendulum, or the regular dripping of the water clock, while nowadays it is the unvarying vibrations of an atom of cesium-133. As Saturn represents the outer limit of observable planets, its time includes the other traditional planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. Jupiter's time is the idea of time as progress, the time of a world always evolving and moving forwards towards a goal, but all these are contained within Saturn's sphere of duration. Saturn can predict, but only by extending current trends into the future, based on the assumption that the current trends will continue, that the graph will keep moving in the same direction. Even predictive systems such as the algorithms used by artificial intelligence operate in Saturnian time, having been programmed to analyze the patterns of the past in order to predict the future. Uranus. Uranus' discovery in 1781 disrupted the medieval order of the universe. Previously, the furthest out planet visible to the naked eye was Saturn. Then the telescope was invented, and Uranus was discovered. Uranus breaks the Saturnian mold, steps outside of time as duration into time as a process of constant becoming. Uranus was discovered at the time of revolutions, in fact halfway between the 2 revolutions, the American in 1776 and the French in 1789, and its nature is revolutionary. This is the symmetry of Uranian time, where effects can be symmetrical in time around a cause, where time has ripples and eddies like the surface of water, so that an event in the future can influence the past. For Uranus, the future is not a clear line with a clear destination or destiny. It is not maktub, or written, as they say in Arabic. The Uranian understanding is that the future is constantly being made depending on how I respond to the present. Tomorrow I will have a different future from the future I have today. From a Saturnian point of view, as time as linear and irreversible, events within Uranus' purview appear as sudden, unpredictable. Things happen out of the blue, without warning. Effects can happen before the cause. But if one is tuned into Uranus and sensitive to and accepting of its pre-echoes, then it is possible to step off Saturn's timeline and get flashes of what is to come. Neptune, cosmic time, the timelessness of the world of spirit. All time is an eternal now. Also, synchronicity, wherein all events that take place in one moment are connected non-causally. How the movements of the planets relate to life on Earth or to our inner reality. There is no physical, measurable connection, but we experience a connection in terms of meaning. Likewise, how the random cut and spread of the tarot cards, or the fall of coins or yarrow stalks in I Ching divination informs the future. Neptunian consciousness is the timelessness experienced in near-death experiences, from which point of view Saturnian time is an illusion of the ego. By the way, as well as ruling cosmic truth, Neptune also rules the illusions that cloud that truth. From the point of view of the linear time of Saturn, Neptunian time is mystical, that is to say, beyond rational thought, transcending ordinary understanding. As William Blake describes it in his Auguries of Innocence, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Pluto, the impersonal cycles of death and rebirth, creation and destruction, purification and renewal. Can there be a state of consciousness connected to the influence of this planet? Perhaps there is only an acceptance of these cycles, an acquiescence, an acceptance that loss means recovery and that death means transformation. The Centaurs. Centaurs operate in mythological time. According to 4th century Neoplatonist Roman philosopher Sallustius, myths are things that never happened but always are. Or to put it in the words of Joseph Campbell, American professor of literature and author of The Hero of 1,000 Faces, a myth is something that has never happened but is happening all the time. For example, the familiar myth of Pandora's box. A box containing spirits? Obviously it's just a story. But it's more than that. It's something that's always happening. Our curiosity and willfulness lead us to pry into mysteries that should stay closed. We open the forbidden box, and all sorts of problems emerge. And all we are left with is hope. Psychologist Sigmund Freud introduced the idea of mythological time with his concept of the Oedipus complex, where a boy is unconsciously living out the myth of Oedipus, who killed his father and married his mother. The female version of this is said to be the Electra complex, where a girl is sexually attracted to her father and is hostile towards her mother. Freud's follower Carl Jung found that myths and their archetypes are processes within the individual and collective unconscious. Quote, from Myth and Psyche, an introduction to Jungian psychology by Donald Kalshed and Alan Jones. The mythic image is not to be taken literally and concretely, as it would be in the belief system of a particular religion, nor is it to be dismissed as mere illusion, as often happens in scientific circles. Instead, we must approach myth symbolically has revealed eternal truths about mankind's psychic existence, about the reality of the psyche. Once upon a time does not mean once in history, but refers to events that occur in eternal time, always and everywhere. Any myth is very much alive today. Every night in sleep we sink back into that source of all mythological imagery, the unconscious psyche, the origin of dreams." End quote. In his book The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Joseph Campbell described the myth of the hero's journey, which is the basis of many novels and movies such as Star Wars and Harry Potter. The work of psychologist Marie-Louise von Franz, follower of Jung, developed the idea of mythological time in relation to fairy tales. We live these myths, generation after generation. The potentiality of these mythical narratives is present in the birth chart in the positions of the centaurs. If in our birth charts one or more of the centaurs is strongly configured, then we may have occasion to live the mythical narrative of the wounded healer, as in the case of Chiron, for example, or the victim of a scam or con trick, as in the case of Nessus. Asbolus. As the seer of the centaurs, Asbolus' relationship with time is his own. His powers of divination, of reading the flux of reality in symbols, such as the flight of birds, takes us into the probabilistic world of how that symbol will manifest in physical reality. This is much in the same way as time operates in quantum mechanics, where reality is seen as a wave of probabilities, with possible futures and even possible pasts, where time's present and time's future exist with different degrees of probability. With Asbolus the seer, we're talking about a particular state of consciousness that can read symbolic realities. A symbolic reality may point towards other possible realities or even to the future. This is what a seer does. That future can be described as fate or destiny, something fixed and determined, or as a branching timeline of possible futures which exist or come into being with various degrees of probability. This article is an extract from a book on Asbolus. If you would like to know more about Asbolus and some of the other centaurs, Pholus, Nessus, and Chariclo, please look out for the forthcoming series of books.
And for more astrological and spiritual musings, check out moonletter.co.uk.